Craven County Board of Commissioners regular session for Monday, April 20th is now in session. I would please ask all people who have their cell phones on to put it on silent ring. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Commissioner Booker.
Here.
Commissioner Liner.
Here.
Commissioner McCabe.
Here.
Commissioner Mitchell. Here. Commissioner Sampson.
Here.
Vice Chairman Jones.
Here.
Chairman Mark.
Here.
And for the record, since we are operating remotely, in many instances, County Manager Jack Fight.
Here.
Assistant County Manager Gene Hodges. County Attorney Ari Grady.
Here. Here.
Amber Parker.
Here.
Craig Warren.
Here.
RSM Senior Manager Robbie Bittner.
I'm here.
Vice Chairman of Craven Aging Planning Board Clayton Gaskins.
I'm here.
DSS Director Jeffrey Merrick.
Here.
Planning Director Don Baumgartner. Craven County School Superintendent Dr. Doyle.
I'm here.
That's all I have on.
Could we please stand for the pledge and the prayer? I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
God of mercy, thank you for giving us another day. Bless the members of this Board of County Commissioners and all those who are working for the common good. Give comfort to your people, O Lord, as the news of sickness grows each day. Protect all our medical professionals and first responders from disease and all evil as they strive to extend your healing power to the lives of so many. Give us patience as we adjust to a new world and a new way of proceeding, and send us your Holy Spirit to comfort and guide us along our way. May everything that is done be for your greater honor and glory. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. You've all had an opportunity to look over the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Nays? The ayes have it. Next is petition of citizens, which consists of the consent agenda. I'm sorry. Next is petition of citizens. Do we have anyone downstairs?
There are no petitioners that have signed up, sir.
There are none. All right. Therefore, we will skip petition of citizens. Next is the consent agenda, which consists of the minutes of April 6th, tax releases and refunds, and a K-9 donation budget amendment. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Booker.
Yes.
Commissioner Liner.
Yes.
Commissioner McCabe.
Yes.
Commissioner Mitchell.
Yes.
Commissioner Sampson. Vice Chairman Jones.
Yes.
Chairman Mark.
Yes. We now have a presentation of the 2019 annual audit report by Senior Manager Robbie Bittner.
Robbie, you're up.
All right, we'll hold on that presentation and go to the Home and Community Care Block Grant Recommended Budget. Clay Gaskins, Vice Chairman of the Aging Planning Board.
Good morning, folks.
Good morning, Clay.
This is the Vice Chair of the Craven Aging Planning Board Committee. Georgia Newkirk, who you all have seen many times, she had been there for many years. She resigned recently. But I've got I think in your packet, it might be referred to as attachment 4, but I'm actually going to be speaking, it should be the top page, up at the top right corner, it has the number or the letter DOA-731. That's the one I'm going to be speaking from. The Budget Committee of the board met on February 27th, and then we had a full board meeting on April 7th by phone, at which time we found out there had been a $19,458 cut that had come about since the February 27th meeting. So as of this time, the state of North Carolina has given a preliminary budget of $514,888, which is reflected in that first block grant funding column. But down on the far left, you see the services. So the transportation, I'll just go through these quickly. The transportation obviously is parks. Craven County congregate meals and home delivered meals are provided by Senior Services here in New Bern. Then Senior Companion is provided by Coastal Community Action. The next three, the care management, the level 2 and level 3 income services are provided by social services, and then the seventh one is the Headlock Congregate. And then over to column D, I'm sorry, the total under the block grant funding column, the total over to the far right, that's the total that's needed for those programs, but then the column B is the required local match, which totals at the bottom $57,209, which is what's being requested of the county to match. With the exception, what I understand, transportation services typically does their own match with various means of advertising that they have, which is the 5261. So, and this could change, between now and July, but right now that we're dealing with that preliminary cut of $19,458. So when we met on April 7th, that was when we had discussion of, where to pull that money from, which programs to pull that from, and we were left with those totals over to the right-hand column. So this is, are there any questions? Mary Ann is also here to answer any questions if anybody has any.
And basically what you're saying is we're less $20,000 in this.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And that again, that could change. Tanya Seegers, who's the director of AAA, was going to be looking into this, but when I spoke to her by email on Friday, this was still the cut that we were dealing with.
Okay. Before I have any questions, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second? Okay, is there any discussion by the commissioners? Any questions? Commissioner Liner?
Yeah, as the board knows, I sit on this committee, and this has been an ongoing situation for a while. I think we believe that we're going to get money from the federal, from the CARE Act that was just signed last month. We should be getting money out of that. Saying that, and I've talked to the vice chair on this, in the past we've gone across the board as a fair and equal amount to cut. This time it did not go that way. and that's the board's, and I'll honor the board, but I have a say in it. On that, I just, looking at the figures, the Gaskins, I've told you before, I cannot support it, and I'll be voting no on it. I just think it's, each individual unit thinks their project is important. I heard what the board says, but we've gone against what we've done in the past as far as an equal amount across the board. So this is the best the board could come up with that came out that way. I don't get a vote on that board, so it's a vote on this board. But I'll be voting no on this budget.
Okay.
Mr.
Any-
Chairman.
Yes, Vice Chairman.
Commissioner Liner, where did, not looking at it as closely as you have, where did the majority of the cuts come from?
Senior companion, Havelock congregants, everybody took a cut, but if you look across the board, the transportation carts had automatically given up 5,000, so they didn't take a cut. They gave that up before this budget came out. They didn't need it, so they gave their 5,000 up to DSS. DSS on their 4 functions took actually a 2.2% cut, to where Havelock Senior Companion took a 10% cut on that. And I'm not telling the board to vote no. I think they're going to get the money, but it's going against what we've done, and I think it could have been, I think all of them important, so that's just me.
Well, you know, congregate meals have been cut for the last 4 or 5 years. Vanceboro lost it, your area lost it. It's just something that the federal government is not funding anymore, and through the state.
Mr. Chairman, can I make a couple comments if the board will allow?
Yeah.
So I think you're bringing up a good point, right? In the last 8 years, this division has lost about half of the funding it originally received when I first came on as county manager. And it's, Commissioner Liner, you've been on this group even longer than you've been a county commissioner. And every year we're facing a $20,000 cut, $15,000 cut. And it's directly reflected to what the federal government invests in the Older Americans Act, right? Money that comes down for these activities. To give the board some examples of what the DSS functions are, to be clear, and Jeff, if you're on the line, or Clayton, I know you guys know this better than me, but I wanted to talk a little bit about what care management level 2 and level 3 is. This is basic life necessity, right? It's a in-home aid type scenario where someone's homebound and we're in providing basic hygiene and things like that, changing bed sheets. So it's a valuable thing to keep someone in their home, because if they leave their home, then we're responsible for them as a guardian. And I can tell you that cost is going up, just have reviewed the budget. Commissioner Liner and I see a lot of this the same, but this to me, I think we may differ on this point a little bit. This directly reduces the amount of money that the county puts into the social services budget, hands down. If you can keep people in their home longer, you're going to sustain them longer without having to intervene. I think all of these programs are important. I'm not saying any one of them's not. Your challenge is, where do you invest the money to get the most bang for your buck? Congregate meals serves a purpose for socialization, getting people out, serving a meal. It's important. Home delivered meals, again, sustain someone at home with that one meal. Clay, Jeff, I tried to do as best I could with that. Is there anything you'd like to add to that?
Jack, you're right. You know, some of the other, like you said, investment and more upfront costs, rather than it gets to a crisis point. You know, that care management services also help keep people in their home. For much longer periods of time, they didn't have those services, and some other budget impacts would be they may have to access services through our agency, and some of those, there is a county cost to that, such as special assistance, if they can no longer be maintaining their, for as long as they were with those services, and the county actually is responsible for, half of those special assistance costs, which can be up to about $1,200 a month, which the county will pick up half of those, depending upon numerous eligibility factors. But I just want to add that too.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Yes.
Since I'm new on the board, to make sure that I understand the way this has worked in the past, we're receiving cuts in the nature of 20,000-ish a year, have been for a number of years, which requires us to cut services to the seniors who live in this community. And the county has chosen not to make up those cut monies.
That's correct.
That's
So that
correct.
as a result, we are not making up those monies, and the senior citizens in our community continue to see their services decline.
Correct.
Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Lyon.
Let me bring up, since I've been on this board, we started at 759,000 approximately. Completely different stories. The money comes in, we have to split it out and everything else. We are only one of 7 counties in this state that pays for a level 3 person to do the work. Now in 1819, the budget for a level 3, and it's mostly salary, was $73,000. If you look at this budget, it's $100,000. I don't know what last year's was. I didn't get that last year's budget to look at it. But I know it didn't grow that much. And again, most of it is salary for the level 3. And again, we're taking money that's coming down, and we have the legal right. Don't get me wrong. They're doing everything by the book. I just think we need to take a different approach from it. Look at the cost in column G. Look at the cost,
Column G.
Yeah, total cost in G, projected reimbursement rate. It's costing $6.87 per customer for the congregate meals here in George Street. If you go to Havelock, they're only getting $4.32, because the city of Havelock is paying for the salary for that individual. They're not taking it out of the cost for the individual. Everything out of that building is paid by the city of Havelock. We as a county pay for everything in George Street, and they take the money out of the number of people, and I think it's maybe 1.5 or 2 that runs the congregate meals, and maybe just 1.5. City of Havelock runs a part-time 1 person, 20 hours a week to run their program. Are they going to die on this? No. But it's still, across the board, a lot of this, if you look at it and it's broken out, a lot of it is salaries coming out of cost that should be supporting our seniors. Is it right? No, but it's legal, because the county is not picking it up. We're relying on the state and the federals to take care of our seniors in this community. Like I said, when I got on this board completely, I wouldn't fight it if they did away with the whole program. It's the state and the federal requirement. You can't continue to grow if you're not going to support it. The numbers, and Commissioner Booker's been on it. I mean, this is a mess. I've been on there for 6 years, and I'm still having a hard time understanding it and trying to work it out. The full go. I mean, it's a numbers game completely. It's going to take a lot of time to do it. I don't want this board to hear me what I'm saying. They did the best they could. on what they got to work with. And you've heard me preach, if you've been on this board since I've been here talking, this has been a mess. But what are we going to continue to do? Drop it? Or stand up like we should be standing up for our seniors? Or let our seniors say, hey, like some of the other people think, not give them anymore. Jack says we're responsible. Yeah, we are responsible. The state owns some of this. So I don't want the board, I'm saying I'm voting because I don't like it. Don't think it's right, but remember, they did the best they could for what they got to work with. We've been doing this for 6 years plus. I'm taking cuts, getting money, taking cuts, getting money. Like I said, we're $300,000 below what we started with. So.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Vice Chairman.
I'd like to make an amendment to the motion, if I may, and I'd like to, that the county provide the required match, but in addition to that, if they do not receive the $19,400 and what? 58 $58, that the county would take that money out of fund balance to keep the program as is going into the next fiscal year.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. I just want to say this before we go on. You know, we're only covering 2 places with this, and that's Havelock and downtown New Bern here. We lost it in Vanceboro. We lost it in your district.
And they lost it in Harlow.
And they lost it in Harlow. So, you know, we're only covering some of the people. We're not covering all of the people. And to me, that's not fair. All right, we have a motion on the floor and we have a second. Is there any more discussion?
Yes, sir, I'd like to make a comment, Mr. Chair. And this is a comment from your report. Okay. We lost it in Harlow, subsidiary area of Vanceboro. There was another option. We are a senior community. We're a retirement community, but the senior community covers all demographics and all groups. We have had 2 years of hard times in this community and maybe more to follow, and that's only on the last 2. I'm going to vote no because I disagree with the entire approach. These are vulnerable people that, in my mind, we need to be providing basic meals and services for, to stay in their homes, to eat, for a roof over their heads. So I can't support this budget because I don't support the county's approach to it. So I appreciate the amendment. With it, I seconded it for a reason, but I think we need to take a closer look at this entire issue at budget time, and if it needs to be straightened out, then we need to straighten it out. That's what we're here for.
But just for the record, Harlow is covered by Havelock. Havelock also covers Carolina Pine. So, and you're right, Chair. There's a lot of people that hasn't been messed out. And don't get me wrong, George Street Home Deliveries covers part of Harlow. They have a number of 3 or 4 people that get meals in Harlow. So.
Yeah.
It's on 3.
This is a big amount of money, you know, for the county to cover. And that, you know, that bothers me too, because we're going to be working with a very lean budget this year. We have no money coming in from the state from what we can see. And the state and the federal government are cutting a lot of their budgets. And it's something that will have to be taken up at budget time. We have a motion, a second. I have a roll call vote, please.
Before we vote, we've had 2 motions and 2 seconds. Is it the second?
He amended
The amendment, all right.
Yes, the amendment was to meet the required local match, and
Right.
they did not receive
Yeah.
the $19,000 that you would.
Understood.
Okay.
Commissioner Booker?
Yes.
Commissioner Liner?
Yes.
Commissioner McKay?
Yes.
Commissioner Mitchell?
Yes.
Commissioner Sampson? Vice Chairman Jones?
Yes.
Chairman Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I believe we're ready for number 3 now.
Okay. All right, presentation of the 2019 annual audit report. Robbie Bittner?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me at this time?
Yes, we can.
Excellent, excellent. I'm not sure what happened the last time, but we'll get this all straightened out. I just want to say to the ladies and gentlemen of the board, thank you for having me come in today or via remote and be able to present our audit report to you. These are a little bit difficult times, and I'd like to just say thank you to Jack, Craig, and their team during the last couple of months where everyone's been mandatory working from home on our end. It's been a little bit more difficult, but they've been very accommodating in helping us get the information that we need. So, to start with, I believe, if I can see on the screen there, you do have a copy of our presentation there.
Yes.
So, I'll start on the first slide there, just talking about your basic financial statements and the minimum requirements there. Under the GASB requirements, GASB being the Government Accounting Standards Board, there are 5 major sections of a CAFR, or of your basic financial statements, which includes management's discussion and analysis, which is a broad overview of year-to-year changes. Then there's your government-wide financial statements, which is your highest level financial statement presentation. Then you have in there your fund financial statements for your major funds and your aggregate non-major funds. Then you have your notes to financial statements, which really is I want to say the meat and potatoes of your financial statements, where you will get the most information out of there. And then the last required piece is the required supplementary information, and this information is primarily your pension information, other post-employment benefits information that is required to be disclosed in accordance with the standards. In addition to that, you will have your what's called supplementary information behind that. That's not required, but it is the more detailed information on a fund-by-fund level as compared to budget. So, if you move on to the next slide, then I'll let you know that we, as auditors, there are 4 types of opinions that we can issue. We can issue an adverse opinion, which is where we believe that your financial statements are not presented fairly in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles, or GAAP. We can disclaim an opinion. When a disclaimer happens, this basically means that we did not receive enough information in order to perform an audit or render an opinion. We can qualify or modify our opinion. This is where we believe that your financial statements are fairly presented in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles, except for maybe one section. And then there's the unmodified or clean opinion, which is the highest level of assurance that we as independent auditors can provide. And I'm happy to say the county, for their financial statements, did receive an unmodified opinion this year. We'll move on to the next, skip down really 2 slides. Let's talk about a couple of the highlights and the financial results for the county for the year 2019. I'll hit this very quickly, given the time that we're in. We are well past this point at this time. But you'll see that the general fund revenues, property taxes being the highest percentage, 47.5%, followed by intergovernmental revenues, and then your sales tax revenues. If you move to the next, you'll see that in a comparison of your general fund revenues by source, you really have not changed the demographic of that too much over the past 5 years. And that is, if you flip over to the next slide, you'll see that the steady income from from property taxes, sales tax, intergovernmental revenues, those percentages really have not changed all that much. If you'll move down to the next slide here, slide 7, you'll see this is Craven County's tax rate per $100 evaluation as compared to similar size municipalities in the state and then also statewide. Note that this information is 1 year back just based on when the Local Government Commission provides this information to us. So this information is specifically based on June 30th, 2018 info that was provided to us. So you'll see that the county is much less than some of its similar sized counties, and also statewide. Statewide is a really hard comparison, just given the vast differences between the counties throughout the state, as you well know. But this goes to show that the county is very prudent in what they're charging the residents for services within the county. If you move on to the next slide, you'll see that the county is still collecting their property taxes at a very high rate. While it's dropped from 2018 to 19 just a little bit, if you slide down onto slide 9, you'll see that they are still collecting at a higher rate than statewide. At 99.32% of property taxes billed are being collected. So that is a overall very good number to have on the county. Our next slide, moving to slide 10, this sort of breaks down your general fund expenditures by function. And you can see the two major items on that list are education and public safety. That is, and also social services. You'll see that this is actually very common countywide, county to county throughout the state, that those are the three highest percentage of expenditures typically. Sometimes we'll see public safety a little higher than social services, but the social services obviously are mostly federally and state funded. Slide 11, you'll see here that's just a trend of those expenditures by segment, and as you can see there's really not been a whole lot of change in how the county has been operating on expenditure growth from a segmented basis. Moving on down to slide number 12, you can see a steady growth in fund balance for the general funds of the county. Each year is going up about anywhere between $1.5 to $2.5 million. This past year it went up just over $2 million in your available fund balance to spend. That slide, the next slide, slide 13, gives you a breakdown of the fund balances in accordance with GASB 54, which gives us 4 different types of fund balance classifications. Those being your non-spendable items, or these items are items such as prepaid items or inventory, things that have already been spent, dollars out the door. Next, you have your restricted. Restricted fund balance is restricted by either an enabling legislation or an external third party. The largest portion of restricted, and it happens to be this way every year, is the stabilization by state statute. This just is a calculation and rule that the state requires that your appropriations do not exceed the cash available on hand. So it is a number that fluctuates year to year, but it is always typically the largest portion of the general fund restricted balance. After restricted balance, you can have items that are considered committed. These would be items that the board has specifically set aside for specific expenditures at the highest level of authority in the county. Then you have assigned fund balance. These fund balances can be assigned by management or through the budget process for subsequent years' expenditures, or assigned for public safety, education, the like. And then the last piece is the unassigned fund balance, which is the largest portion of fund balance, and that unassigned portion is pretty much what the county has yet to appropriate at this point. Then move on to the next slide. You'll see that the fund balance is as a percentage of general fund net expenditures of what is available. This kind of gives you a good overview of the reserve that you have in fund balances and being able to operate going forward. With everything that's happened in the past few months with COVID-19 and shutdowns and the anticipation that there likely will be some sales tax revenue declines, potential collection issues related to property taxes when they get billed later this year, compliance with federal and state awards and the internal controls related to those. This year, in our opinion, we issued an unmodified opinion on all major federal and state programs other than the medical assistance program. And with that, specifically related to the medical assistance program, we did qualify our opinion on medical assistance eligibility determination. And I'll explain this a little bit further. So, in the past, I want to say, I believe it was about 4 or 5 years ago, the federal government started changing the manner in which they determined eligibility for the Family and Children's Medicaid program. And during that course of that time, the compliance supplement for the medical assistance program expressly told the local auditors not to examine eligibility determination made on a modified adjusted gross income basis. That was something that has been in those compliance supplements for several years now, until this year. So this was a change in not only how we were having to perform testing, but it was also a change in what was the level at which that particular program was being looked at. So we can say here that really this is a program, this particular piece of the eligibility determination program really has not been looked at very closely by an external auditing firm or even regulators as much as the other adult Medicaid has been in the past. So that is where the major change was in that piece. So if you move on from there to slide 16, I'll kind of get into it a little bit more there, but slide 16, we have our financial statement findings related to our report on internal control and compliance. We did issue 2 material weaknesses in internal control this year. The first one being financial reporting and the preparation of the scheduled expenditures of federal and state awards. During this process, we did have some material adjustments to the schedule originally provided to us, and therefore we really had no choice than to call it a material weakness in internal control. This particular finding was a repeat finding from our 2018 audit. The second material weakness in internal control was related to the timely preparation of bank reconciliations. During this time, during the course of the audit, the June bank statement was not fully reconciled until the December timeframe. And this is a result of a couple of, really kind of a perfect storm of a couple of items. The county switched their financial reporting software to Munis, which is a great software, but transition times can always be a bit difficult. And also during the course of the audit and that transition time, there was retirement of some key folks that would be working specifically around the bank reconciliation process and creating the new processes and controls that needed to be there in order to perform that function in the new system. And all in all, it resulted in timeliness delays in getting the bank reconciliations performed. And that's an extremely important control, as the bank reconciliation is kind of one of your major expenditure controls to ensure that everything, all of the county's expenditures are being appropriately accounted for throughout the general ledger. So the last piece, the last deficiency that we issued this year, we did have a significant deficiency in internal control related to the unbilled water usage calculation. This was just a calculation error related to the unbilled or revenue that the county had earned at the end of the year but not yet billed for or accrued for. And in accordance with the county's policy, this calculation was not performed in a consistent manner that it has been in the past. It did not result in a material adjustment, but the adjustment was large enough to warrant a significant deficiency rating. So, if you move on to the next slide, slide 17, we had this. It says there's two findings here, but in reality, it's the same finding. This relates to the material noncompliance, specifically related to our qualified opinion on medical assistance. Since the medical assistance program is both federal and state, we have to issue both a separate federal and a state award finding. However, in the CAFR, in the compliance section, if you look, we reference finding 2019-0052-004 because it is one in the same. And when you have the material non-compliance that resulted in a qualified opinion, then clearly there was a material weakness in the internal control over compliance determination, specifically related to the eligibility determination function. And with that, I will say that we tested 77 medical assistance files. We found 3 errors in the eligibility determination function based on the requirements of the uniform guidance and the AICPA's statistical sampling guides. Without attesting a significant additional more files, we would not be able to get to an unmodified opinion on that, given the sheer magnitude of the samples that would have had to have been looked at in order to get there. That would be assuming that there were no additional errors found. So that kind of concludes overall presentation. Again, I'd like to say thank you to the county, to Jack, to Craig, to the rest of Craig's staff. The timeliness, I will speak to the timeliness of this year's audit with the reductions in the county staff and not being able to timely prepare the bank reconciliations. It pushed us into a later December, January timeframe in order to get some of the work that we had to get done completed, in which case at that point, us as the auditing firm, our people were already assigned out to some other stuff, so we ran into some timing issues of trying to get the information and have the time to complete it. Just based on the length of time that it was drug out that. So, not to say that Craig and his team were not responsive. They were very responsive to anything that we ever asked for. But it's always a significant back and forth between us just to make sure that we got everything just right. So, with that, I'd be glad to answer any questions and take any comments related to it.
Okay, I would just like to say that I think overall, this is a good report. And there are, some of this could be due to the medical, Medicaid material, might be because of the new computer system that we have. and the other one was on the airport, I believe. I think, Jack, that myself and you and the vice chairman should, because this is the second time this has happened, we should make a visit with the airport board and ask them to correct that situation. Are there any other comments by the commissioners?
I had a question in terms of making this case was just generated this year. Go back to the slide. We went from 0.5 to 0.9.
What page?
Number 6.
Page 6.
Yeah, we did 2018, 2019. I'm sure there's a good reason. I just like to know what it is. Yeah, 0.5 to 9. On the general fund revenue by source.
What page were you on?
On number 6.
Number 6.
That's interesting.
Right, exactly. I'd like to get way more interest, but I just asked why. Is that $9.4 million?
I believe, and Robbie may have to kind of back me up on this one, the number that's going into this section of the chart is related to the refunding. It's I guess, considered as other financing sources, and on the revenue side, it may be being rolled up into the interest. Robbie would have to answer that.
So refund from Florida?
Well, the refunding for the debt service, the refinancing, which was roughly about a little over $8 million.
Okay.
Okay. Commissioner Reiner?
Rob, if you could, you said we got a pretty good fund balance of 28, but it's below similar size. During your similar size, I want to make sure I understand this. You never seen any of the other boards have a large capital improvement reserves set aside like we do, or is all of theirs in their general reserve?
We have seen it both ways, where they will put things in a general reserve, but also have that capital reserve piece. And I just want to make sure I understand the question.
What page are you on, Judge?
Your reservation is larger than most of your similar size. There are similar sized counties out there. Just want to make sure I'm hearing you correctly.
Well, we've got unassigned is 28.6, but on the next page, on page 14, you show us being below a similar size and below the state.
Commissioner Reiner, I think this is a bit of an anomaly. You spent more money in 2019 because of Hurricane Florence, which made your overall budget bigger that year. So your reserves, when you do a percentage against a bigger budget, your number is a tad smaller than it probably normally would be, because you had that inflation of, remember we had about $118 million? I don't have that number in front of me. So I think that was a one-year anomaly that's a little smaller than similar size. I think if you compare it against like a budget we would have now or in the future, you would see that number higher.
No, I fully understand that, and I concur with what you're saying, and believe me on that. I just want to make sure that we understand that we're not bad off, because we've got a completely separate reserve fund in capital improvement. It has nothing to do with our general reserves. So in reality, we're way above, because a lot of the counties out there, a good portion, 60% or more, have their capital in their general, which relates that we're way better than most out there.
Yeah, and the other thing, Commissioner Reiner, is that, monies that were spent during the hurricane are not showing up here that are owed to us either.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Any other questions? Mr. Ritter, I want to thank you very much for your time and your report.
Thank you, and again, thank you to the county. If you have any other questions, please feel free to reach out to me at any time.
Thank you. Okay. Next is Home and Community Care Block Grant Recommended Budget. Oh, we did that, I'm sorry, I'm jumping. Social Service, Additional Foster Care Funds Budget Amendment. Jeff Merritt.
Thank you, Chairman, and Commissioners, County Manager. We, bring before you request for additional funds to our foster care resident board line item. You can see the amounts in the budget amendments, and we've also given you some, justification as the explanation of why this change is needed. I can go over some of those. We're seeing a trend not only in our county, but also across the state and the nation where we are seeing significant increases in the number of children having come into the care of our agency due to issues with abuse, neglect, and or dependency. This is a mandated function of our agency when it comes to the protection and the removal of children who cannot be safely maintaining their, which in turn requires us to provide cost of care for residents that includes resident board. Want to give you a little bit of information as to why we're, seeing this increase. The biggest two determining factors that are driving this increase are, issues with mental health with parents, sometimes even the juvenile, and in addition to substance abuse, it's the combination of those two. In March of 2020, we had 108 children in care. That's the highest that I've seen since I've been here for the past 3 years. And 78% of our cases included a combination of either mental health and substance abuse as being a determining factor as to why those children could no longer be maintained in their homes. 44% of those were specifically related to some type of involvement with the parents in opioids. In addition to the increase in cost, when we see children who have incurred more significant trauma in their home, we are seeing more extreme behaviors, which causes the level of care to have to increase, which in turn causes the cost to increase. We listed some of those behaviors that we are seeing in some of our children in our homes, which doesn't allow them to be maintained in what would be considered a standard foster care home where they don't have any specialized training to try and deal with those behaviors. We have those children in those homes until those behaviors have been addressed and are able to be managed, and then we move them to a lower level home, but until that time they have to remain in our higher level home. We're seeing that more and more often. I'll give you some numbers as well. Below, it kind of starts in March of 17, if you're able to see the number of children we have in care and plus the number of children based upon the eligibility funding tied to those children in care, and then the number of children that were in a placement that was above standard level of cost of care. Another factor I say is that the counties and the state, private agents are starting to have trouble with the recruitment of foster homes. If anyone that is interested in some of the foster care, we would ask them to reach out to our agency. But the private homes are actually have a higher cost of care.
Vice Chairman?
Jeff or Jack, either one, what did we originally put into this year's budget as far as the county's part to match?
For this?
Yeah, the fiscal year. Do you know? If you don't know.
I don't have, Jeff, do you happen to have that in front of you?
I have, yes, I do. Our current budget for foster care 4B was $330,000, and for foster care 4E was $350,000.
And so what you're asking for, I mean, we're gonna get the matching funds from the state and federal government and so forth, but out of county fund balance, we're talking about, if I'm right in my math, $72,984.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Now, Mr. Chairman, if I may just get a clarification, when you gave the 330,000 and the 350,000 numbers, is that county money or is that total money?
That's total money.
That was total money.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? All right, we have a motion, a second. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Booker?
Yes.
Commissioner Liner?
Yes.
Commissioner McKay?
Yes.
Commissioner Mitchell?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Jones?
Yes.
Chairman Martin?
Yes. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Next is our Planning Department, Don Baumgartner. A request for a road addition and Sweet Tea Solar Energy Facility.
For the addition of Jackson Drive in the Cherry Branch subdivision, the road is approximately 8.67 tenths of a mile. It's to be turned over to the state for maintenance. The road addition resolution, the standard SR2, once passed, will be forwarded to the North Carolina Department of Transportation for final consideration and acceptance of this road into the state maintenance system. These roads are located in Cherry Branch, and in order to move forward, a vote to approve the standard SR2 road addition resolution is needed.
Okay? Do we have a motion, a second? I'll second it.
You don't.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear. Okay. We have a motion and a second. Discussion?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Liner.
Jack, when we send this out, can we put this figure in a different style? Because to me, it looks like 8.67 miles.
Yes, sir. We can.
You're right, it does.
And I know Jacqueline Road's not that long.
Well, maybe we could have had Commissioner do it himself then. Okay, we have a motion, a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Nays? The ayes have it. Okay, Don.
All right, the next item is dealing with the Sweet Tea Solar Energy Facility. We have received an application, and it was reviewed and approved by the Craven County Planning Board on March 26, 2020. The property is a site located in Township 8 off of Stevenson Road. The solar energy facility will have approximately 11,016 solar panels and will occupy 16 acres of the total 31 acres site. The solar energy facility will produce 4.5 megawatts of electric power, which will be sold to Duke Energy. The solar energy facility would require a bond, which will be provided before a building permit is issued. The bond itself will be used in order to ensure that in the event that the project site is no longer being used, that the bond will cover costs to decommission the site. The Sweet Tea Solar Energy Facility meets or exceeds the standards of the county's solar energy facility ordinance. At this time, in order to move forward, a vote to approve the Sweet Tea Solar Energy Facility is needed.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
No, go ahead, Vice Chair.
Vice Chair?
Don, I see here in the supplemental regulations and where they went through and they signed off on the requirements, they have here that they sent a written notice to all, that it was mailed to all property owners within 500 feet of the parcel, and then also they hand-delivered notices. I know they were going to have a public opportunity for them to come, but that had to be canceled due to the virus. Has your office received any questions from citizens, concerns about this facility?
No, sir, we have not. We basically, everyone that we approached when we went out to deliver the notices was interested in maybe selling their property to the solar energy facility too. So they wanted us to pass that along to the solar energy. But no, we've had no one with its opposition.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Liner.
No, sir, he answered my question.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, you go.
Commissioner Booker.
Yeah, I'm relatively sure this will pass because apparently it meets all the requirements. However, I fundamentally, just a statement of personal belief, I fundamentally disagree with any project that would require the federal government to subsidize it to be successful. And my understanding, solar farms as well as wind farms cannot survive solely on their own. They have to have government supplemental to do so. And based on that, I would not vote for this. Thank you.
Okay. All right. We have a motion, a second. And could I have a roll call vote on this, please?
Commissioner Booker,
No.
Commissioner Liner,
I concur with Commissioner Booker, but they have done what they're required to do. I think it's unfair to everybody else, but yes.
Commissioner McCabe,
Yes.
Commissioner Mitchell,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Jones,
Yes.
Chairman Martin.
Yes, and I concur with both commissioners that the way this thing is taxed in their favor is a shame, but they have met all the conditions set forth by the county. Yes. Okay. Next is Finance Budget Amendment.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I have two budget amendments for you this morning. The first one is a request to increase the budget for medical examiner fees. The number of autopsies and investigations performed by the Office of Chief Medical Examiner is estimated to exceed what was originally budgeted for this year. The total budgeted this fiscal year was $145,000 for both autopsies and investigations. The current fees for those autopsies are $1,750 for the autopsy itself and $200 for the investigations. Expenditures are currently running at 97% of budget through 75% of the fiscal year. It is estimated that $65,000 will be needed from fund balance to cover the medical examiner fees through the remainder of the fiscal year.
Yeah, this is, the autopsies is a county responsibility. Unfortunately, due to the opioid problem we have, and now with the virus, this figure is going up. Do I have a motion?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Can I have a question, please?
Yes.
Greg, so far you're telling me we've matched out 97%, so that means we've had 72 autopsies so far, and we're expecting another 34 autopsies by the end of the year, by the end of June.
Yeah, and there could be
That
some
could be
time
more.
between those autopsies when we actually get billed for them.
So
But yes,
106 that we had to do that's either suspicious or it has to go because there's questions.
That's correct. There's
Right.
always an investigation, and then if it required, then they would go on. and-
Okay, we have a motion, second, we have a roll call vote.
Commissioner Bucher,
Yes.
Commissioner Liner,
Yes.
Commissioner McKay,
Yes.
Commissioner Mitchell,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Jones,
Yes.
Chairman Martin.
Yes.
Okay, the second request on the agenda this morning is for school capital funding. Back in July, Commissioners approved the board's request to transfer $250,000 that was originally approved for, in the school capital fund for bathroom renovations at Graham A. Barden. And it was transferred to complete that project to the HVAC replacement at H.J. McDonald Middle School Gym. The bids to replace the unit came in at $356,245, which is higher than what was approved for the project. In order to cover the difference of the $106,245, the school board is requesting that commissioners approve the use of $57,957 from the fund balance in this school capital fund that is carried over from prior year projects. The remaining $48,288 will come from the school's fund balance.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, discussion. Any discussion?
Dr. Doyle, if you need a comment, question,
Does anybody have a question for Dr. Doyle? Commissioner Liner?
Dr. Doyle, this is not relationship, but how are your people holding out?
If the superintendent is any indication, not well. We're actually doing well. As you know, we are going back to delivering meals today, trying to make sure that we're, the biggest priority is keeping our folks safe and hoping that our children and their families can help us with that by observing the physical distancing measures that we've put in place and the signage that we posted on buses and that type of thing. But obviously, I mean, just as you all are constantly aware, we are as well, that our frontline employees are the ones that are doing the most important and critical work for our community at this time, and I really appreciate them.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right, we have a motion, a second, to authorize approval of increased fund requested. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Bucher,
Yes.
Commissioner Liner,
Yes.
Commissioner McKay,
Yes.
Commissioner Mitchell,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Jones,
Yes.
Chairman Martin.
Yes. Thank you, Superintendent Doyle.
Thank you.
Next is Human Resource Request for a Temporary Personnel Resolution. Amber Parker.
The Families First Coronavirus Response Act, or the Act, was signed into law on March 18th, and it created the Emergency Family Medical Leave Expansion Act and the Emergency Paid Sick Leave Act, which went into effect April 1st. The Act applies to employers with 500 or less employees, as well as government employers, and it will remain in effect at least through December 31st. The Act expands the scope of the Family Medical Leave Act, and it provides for emergency paid sick leave for COVID-19 related absences. The Act creates a new basis for protected FMLA leave for an employee needing to stay home for care for a child whose school or care facility is closed because of COVID-19. Eligible employees are entitled to up to 12 weeks to care for their children. The Act also states full-time employees are entitled to a maximum of 80 hours of emergency paid sick leave for certain COVID-19 related reasons. Part-time employees are entitled to paid leave equal to the average number of hours typically worked in a 2-hour period. Employees are eligible for emergency paid sick leave if they are able to work because the employee is subject to a federal, state, or local quarantine or isolation order related to COVID-19. If the employee has been advised by a healthcare provider to self-quarantine due to concerns related to COVID-19. If the employee is experiencing symptoms of COVID-19 and seeking a medical diagnosis. The employee is caring for an individual who is quarantine or isolation. The employee is caring for a son or daughter whose school or child care provider is closed. Or the employee is experiencing other substantially similar conditions as described by the Secretary of Health and Human Services. Now, the Act also permits employers to exclude healthcare providers and emergency responders from these new provisions in order to ensure the continuity of essential services. The U.S. Department of Labor defines an emergency responder as anyone necessary for the provision of transport, care, health care, comfort, nutrition of such patients, or others needed for response to COVID-19. This includes but is not limited to military or National Guard, law enforcement officers, correctional personnel, firefighters, emergency medical services personnel, physicians, nurses, health personnel, emergency medical technicians, paramedics, emergency management personnel, 911 operators, child welfare workers and service providers, public works personnel, and persons with skills or training in operating specialized equipment, or other skills needed to provide aid in a declared emergency, as well as individuals who work for such facilities, employing those individuals, and whose work is necessary to maintain the operation of the facility. Craven County will implement the Emergency Family Medical Leave Expansion Act and the Emergency Paid Sick Leave Act provisions created by the Family First Coronavirus Response Act as required. To ensure the continuity of essential county government services, I recommend Craven County exclude healthcare providers and emergency responders as defined from the EFMLEA and for reasons 4, 5, and 6 of the Emergency Paid Sick Leave Act. Healthcare providers and emergency responders would not be excluded from reasons 1 and 3 of the Emergency Paid Sick Leave Act, which would grant them paid sick leave should they become ill with COVID-19 or COVID-19-like symptoms, or if they're required to self-quarantine. I also request the county manager and/or his designee be authorized to determine which specific positions fall under the U.S. Department of Labor definition of healthcare providers and emergency responders. Craven County maintains the right to amend this policy or exclude all provisions of the Emergency Family Medical Leave Expansion Act and Emergency Sick Leave Act allowed by law should it become a necessity to maintain continuity of county government operations. In your board packet, there is a copy of the proposed policy that I'm requesting recommendation.
Okay, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second? We had a second?
Yeah.
Discussion.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner?
Amber, Jack, have y'all put a potential price?
County Attorney's report.
No report, Mr. Chairman.
No report. That sounded good. County Manager's report.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I want to first start by thanking the board for your support of the county and the county employees during this time. I know we've had our second meeting here since all this started. I appreciate you working with us on how the meetings are taking place. Hopefully, this is working. What I do want to remind you of as we move closer, and depending on how long this crisis continues to put restrictions on how we meet, we do need to begin thinking about the budget process. We are roughly a month away from today when we would start. I'm going to be talking to each of you individually over the next week to get your comfort level for how you'd like to meet. I really don't think the budget's something that can be done over the phone. It's an in-person activity, so we need to make sure that we're prepared. My gut feeling tells me to set up the Emergency Operations Center with each commissioner with their individual table 6 feet apart, with Craig and I in the room, and I think we can go pretty quickly that way. Obviously, we need to talk about technology and having people available that may need to come and present to you. But I will talk to each of you individually about
I think
that.
we'll need the attorney there, too.
Yeah, we can, and he may be someone that may be easy to do by phone.
Yeah, true.
Aries pretty used to that. I do have two other items for you today. I was going to give you an update real quick on where we are with COVID-19 as a county. I am very sad this morning to report to you that we did have another death this morning related to COVID-19. This is our third death in Craven County. This was an individual who had been tested in late March, was diagnosed in early April, and had been hospitalized to that point. So I want to relay that. That is hot off the presses. That came right as the meeting was started this morning. So with that, based on the report I had yesterday, we've been releasing around noontime the count. So yesterday's count at 12:30 p.m. was there were 33 confirmed cases in Craven County. 11 of those cases were active, and 20 were recovered. So 20 out of the 33 cases are recovered. That's more than 50%. That's a number you want to see. You want to maintain your recovery at more than 50%, and that gives you an idea of how rapidly you're adding cases. If you've got more people recovered than active, then you're not adding as many. Obviously, you got more time in between. As I mentioned, we did have 2 deaths yesterday. I will go ahead and add the third one in, even though that's brand new. It's not on my report. And there were 5 people hospitalized yesterday, but we, of course, know that 1 person passed away, so they're no longer hospitalized. So that would be 4 hospitalizations.
Can I ask one question on that?
You can.
Of the 5 hospitalizations, are they all from our county?
These numbers only reflect Craven County folks.
Okay.
There may be additional hospitalized people at Carolina East from
Okay.
other counties. Yes, sir. We don't have that information. So again, in about 2 hours, there will be a whole nother sheet. I have not gotten a report yet this morning if we received any new cases. I have not been in contact with the health director. We're continuing what we've been doing for over a month now. We are tracking and contact tracing any positive cases that come forward, and that doesn't matter whether they're a positive case from a private provider, they're tested at the hospital, or they're tested through the health department clinic. We still have the ability and still do test at the health department clinic. We are no longer, of course, for the last several weeks doing the drive-up clinic because testing has become more available in the private sector and we're not needed as much there. We do still have the capability to do that if that's something that the pendulum swings that way. Obviously, we're hopeful that some of the more rapid tests are coming our way. As you've heard in the news, there are tests that come in much quicker. Within hours. We're hoping to get some of those. As of now, we're still using the traditional testing method, which is using the state lab, has a little bit less lead time, or the private lab, which has a little more lead time, somewhere from 2 to 7 days. 2 at the state lab, best case scenario, 7 days, worst case scenario at the private lab. We are still using the same criteria to track close contacts, 6 feet or less, more than 10 minutes. Typically, close contacts in ours are family members, are folks who may have been in that environment with the person, whether it be work or social. We still, and just to kind of talk to you a little bit about what the county government's doing, we still have the same restrictions in place that we put in over a month ago now, where we're not having face-to-face contact between county departments and the public. We're still using remote things like email, our website, telephone. We have appointments where face-to-face is absolutely critical, like marriage license or types of permits that the sheriff may offer to the citizens. We still have our clinics open at the health department, even though not our own decision, but those have reduced by about 30 to 40% over the last month. Obviously, people who came in for more routine things are not doing that now, and that's widespread across any sector of the economy. As I mentioned to the chair and vice chair last week, Craig and I have been working on the budget. Over the last month, we are hopefully done with the first cut and got to get it back out to the departments and get it back where we want it so we can get it ready for you in a month. But we are seeing some revenue declines. Things are coming in. Obviously, sales tax has such a long lead time. We won't know what March looked like from a sales tax perspective until June 15th. We won't know what April looks like until July 15th, which is in the next fiscal year. So we have to use sales tax as sort of a barometer of what we think happened. And we can use other factors in the economy to try to help Craig and I get that. We're getting great guidance from the state, from our associations, both the League of Municipalities and the county commissioners, on different advice that we can do. Property taxes, the luxury of that is that most of the property taxes were collected before this happened. There were some folks who didn't, obviously hadn't made those arrangements. It's not a large sum of money, and we're still collecting some every day, but that sort of moved forward. Revenues that you need to be mindful of that have already been impacted, one is occupancy tax, right? Occupancy tax is directly related to the amount of folks that rent hotel rooms or places to stay here in Craven County. Craig and I have been talking to a lot of the hoteliers and people who own bed and breakfast and different types of things. They're down less than 20% of what their normal occupancy would be this time of year. This is sort of getting into the good season here. The spring, the summer, that's the prime time there. There is still some essential stays that are happening. We do still have some work going on, and obviously that work can still continue. but leisure travel is dropped off to almost nothing at this point. Other revenues to be looking at, obviously beer and wine, things like that, where it's really heavily dependent on restaurants, things in our budget that are license generated, anything that's driven by the strength of the economy. I know I mentioned sales tax, but there are other things like building permits, real estate transfers, all types of different small pieces of our budget that make the whole. Obviously, look at it next year. If I had a crystal ball, this would be the moment I wish I had it. We're going to do the best we can when trying to predict revenue. We're going to be conservative with it, but we're also going to look and hope that this economy gets back open and we can start doing business like we normally have. I don't want the board and the public to forget one statement is that we had not finished recovering from Hurricane Florence. There were lots of businesses and individuals in this community that were still struggling in March when this happened. We need to be extremely mindful of that as we move forward, and the outcome of how that will work and how long this takes could be an impact on our budget. So that's my report. Let me stop there. I got one more item. Is there any questions on the county COVID-19 report?
I had a question in terms of your budget. When you said the occupancy tax, did you mean they are down to 20% or less of their normal revenues, or that their normal revenues have shrank 20%?
No, they're down to 20% of their normal revenue.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's what I thought.
Some are better than others. It just depends on what type of business they're getting right now.
Way down.
Yep, way down is the word of the day.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Jack, I think we all got to be mindful about now about reopening back at county government at some point. What kind of steps are you thinking about taking as far as being, going forward? I mean, I know a lot of businesses now have got the shields in front of the desk and so forth. I didn't know if you have a plan going forward. We're hearing that this might come back again in the fall, and I didn't know if y'all had thought about that process. I think, and I know you have already begun considerations of the future, but I think we've got to get prepared to be able to open back up when we feel like it's safe, and I think we'll probably be one of the first ones,
Yes, sir.
and we need to lead the way. And so I just, if we need to invest something so we can get to that point to go ahead and begin that process, I think I'm in favor of seeing us do that.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Jones, I think that's a great comment. It's something we think about every day because we want to be back open. County government is not made to be ran this way. Our meetings are not supposed to look like this, right? I mean, we're for the people, by the people. We think every day about it. The luxury is a lot of the places that have high populations of people already have the things in place that we need. There are modifications, and there's some that just are very difficult, like Parks and Rec, to go out and modify a playground a lot. We've just got to be ready, and I think all the department heads and all the staff of this county are ready for that, and we just got to wait for the time.
Yeah. And naturally, the gateway is the first step, and the stuff going back down the other way. And being that you brought that up, each one of the commissioners was given a copy. Jack, myself, and Vice Chairman have spent a number of times on the phone talking about a letter to the governor, which I will read after we go through the commissioner's comments.
Okay.
So I'll start with Commissioner's comment.
I got one more item.
Yeah.
Sorry, sir.
Sorry about that.
I did want to mention to the board, and I'm sorry that this was not in the agenda. It just wasn't ready. It came in after the agenda was already finalized. But I did want to mention to you something that's needed by the county at this point. If you want to hear my presentation and put it on the next agenda, that's fine, or you can deal with it today. I certainly understand that I'm hitting you cold with this, okay? So just let me know what you want, and we can put on the next agenda. But the health director has brought forward a proposal to me, which still needs a little bit of tweaking. But what we're talking about is temporary on-call pay for our communicable disease nurses. Meaning these folks are basically on call every day, all hours of the day. Depending on when a situation arises with a positive COVID-19 case, there's a certain amount of work that they have to do. Last budget year, we included on-call pay for our hospice nurses. They are very similar on a day-to-day basis. They can't predict when someone may die. So we have to have money available for them if they need to go out on Saturday or at 10 o'clock at night or on a holiday. This policy that I'm proposing to you would mirror what you adopted for the hospice nurses last year. When I say temporary, meaning through the end of this fiscal year. June 30th, 2020 would be when it would end. And of course, we could reevaluate whether it moves into the next fiscal year during the budget process. This policy, the types of work that our communicable disease nurses are doing now include communication with the State Department of Health and Human Services when we get a positive case. They have some information that's relayed. They're doing contact tracing. They're talking to that individual. They're having to call other folks who may have been in contact so they know to be tested or quarantined and things like that. And they're also dealing with the patient directly. If that patient has a question, they have some type of thing that they need to know from the communicable disease nurse, and they're working closely with the physician of that person, their medical home, determine how to care for this person and what types of treatment are being going on. The policy, as Scott has proposed, that mirrors the hospice would be $50 per night. That's a weeknight. So that's basically from 5 to 8, 5 at night to 8 in the morning. It would be $75 for a weekend day. That's a 24-hour period. And then it would be $100 for a holiday. There's only one holiday between now and the end of the fiscal year, and that's Memorial Day. This whole process, this is for 2 nurses for each on-call shift. So 2 each night, 2 each day during the weekend, and 2 on the holiday. That's the maximum. It can be adjusted depending on the case count by the health director. That's how in the policy. So if he determines only one person needs to be on call, then he has that option. The cost is $10,990.61 through the remainder of the fiscal year. I know that doesn't add up to the numbers I gave you because you have to add in, I wrote it down, FICA, retirement, 401k, and workers' comp because it is a payroll expense. To make this easy, we received over $800,000 in COVID-19 funding to the health department that is specifically allocated to COVID-19 expenses, only for the health department. This $10,990.61 could come from that money, and I would suggest if you decide to do that, to allocate that money in a budget amendment, which Mr. Warren will prepare for your next meeting. We would like for this policy to be retroactive to the beginning of the last pay period, which was April 15th.
Do you want a motion, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Can I have a question? Jack, again, I know I'm getting harped on this, but this is another one. I know they've gotten money for COVID-19, but this can also be filed with FEMA.
It could be, but if we use the grant funding from the federal government, this probably will not be an eligible expense to the county.
But you're taking it away from buying supplies and the rooms and stuff.
Correct. We can check on it. I just don't want to say for sure in this meeting because I have not reviewed that yet.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, Commissioner
No.
Leiner?
Roll call, sir.
Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Bucher,
Yes.
Commissioner Leiner,
Yes, after a question.
Commissioner McKay,
Yes.
Commissioner Mitchell,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Jones,
Yes.
Chairman Mark.
Yes. Okay. Actually, Jack, I think that's an excellent idea, using the emergency
Those
service.
folks, and I didn't say this, those folks have worked so hard. Our communicable disease nurses, I got to tell you, I've been so impressed with them. We have 5 of them, along with our nursing supervisor. These folks have been like the Energizer Bunny over the last month and a half. I know Scott's talking to them all the time. I'm really proud of them. They do a great job for us.
Thank you. Okay, Commissioners' comments, and I'll start off with Commissioner Booker.
Yeah, thank you. Just a couple of quick comments. One is we all, related to reopening, we all know that this is unprecedented, this closing down of the economy of the United States. And I know a number of local businesses are really teetering on the point of bankruptcy, not being able to reopen because they're just plain out of money. In some cases, as was mentioned by the county manager a minute ago, these people are still trying to recover from what happened to them just twice in the last 18 months. So my comments are not to be taken as official or that I have, trying to think of the right word, that I have accurate and I guess comments that would be undisputable. But my understanding is that the whole idea of the Great Depression of the 30s could be equal once we get back open. People aren't going to automatically come out in the same quantity that they did prior. So I think whether it's restaurants or other businesses, even if we said today, okay, all restrictions are off, which we're not going to, go ahead and do whatever you want to do, people aren't going to do that. Evidenced by the number of people who feel the need to just stay in their homes. And there will certainly be a lot of people who will continue to do that once this economy is reopened. So my comments are, yes, I believe it's time to open the economy to get people back to work, but we should not be misled and think that by doing that, oh, the virus has been defeated. It has not. And it will continue to spread until we have a vaccine or until people are immune, and that means that they will have probably gotten this virus. So I'm very much in favor of this letter, and I think hopefully the governor will allow us to get things open, at least on a limited basis, at the end of this month.
Thank you. Commissioner Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I would like to thank our essential personnel, our healthcare workers, our law enforcement, our county employees, all the people who keep us running, for continuing to work, for all of the extra hours above and beyond service that they are giving, have been giving, will continue to give to the citizens of this county. Second of all, I would like to echo Commissioner Hooper's comments. I think the media is misrepresenting the threats that are facing the citizens of this county, this state, and this country. One of the threats is certainly COVID-19. A second threat is economic and financial. With it, businesses are closed down, they are teetering on bankruptcy, people are in severe financial hardship because either they cannot go to work, their businesses, their jobs may be closing. That's an equal threat in terms of severity if your home, your food supply, if your ability to provide for your families is at risk. And I believe that it is here and in other places. The third threat, frankly, is medical care. When I heard no unessential services, I was thinking facelifts. No, it's not. It's things like hip replacements and kidney stones. Well, if you can't care for a family member because you can't walk because you need a hip replacement, or you can't go to your job because you're in excruciating pain, or if you have been on pain pills for the last 3 weeks because they can't do a particular procedure, that's an equal threat. It's not just facelifts. It's non-death-defying surgeries and procedures. Well, that's a real broad spectrum. With it, I strongly endorse the ability of local governments to determine what is the appropriate way and time to reopen our economy. This is not Mecklenburg County. It's not Wake County. This is Craven County, and each situation is different. I do support this letter. The only change I would make is my first line would be we strongly support the ability of local governments to control the when, where, and how we reopen. I wouldn't have him wait till the end of the letter to find our position. I'd put it up front, so you can't miss it. So I think we need to start looking at a measured response. I'd hate to say no sports leagues for the summer, but that is not essential. Okay, business owners going bankrupt, people losing jobs, I think that is essential. So I strongly support this letter, and I hope the board will consider it. That's all, sir.
Commissioner McCabe.
No, sir, I have no comments at this time.
Commissioner Liner.
Sure, thank you. First of all, I'd like to go along with both of my fellow commissioners on their comments. I'm not going to go much into more what they say. I agree with everything they have to say. I'm one of the ones, my wife's surgery got postponed and she can barely walk now because of her knee being totally gone, so I understand that. But most importantly, our business leaders are hurting. Our businesses are going under and they're dying. So I totally support everything that was said and everything on there. I want to put a thing to it. Not only is this county workers stood up and done everything that's been asked of them and has exceeded, but the community has followed suit and done everything and even more. We've got church groups, we've got other organizations that stepped up and has helped us, meaning the county, and has helped the hospital, DSS, and some of the other services by getting them masks. And I greatly appreciate all of the masks that's been brought forward and put out there. So our workers, we've said this since I've been on this board, are the best that we can ever get. The leadership team is the best we've got going and standing forward. And I'm sorry to say we have to sit up here and look at Jack because he did show up at the meeting. It was nice having him on TV or at home on the phone. But Jack, we're glad to see you back and healthy.
Thank you, sir.
On that, and the team that you're doing is in place as well. Now I need one thing from you for the board, whether we want to do it now, but be aware at budget time. I know we approved, I appreciate Vice Chair's coming up with the 19,458, which I think we're going to get back in the CARES Act funding from the federals. But keep in mind, that still puts us on the hook for a 10% match at 2,000. So we handle it here, or be aware at budget time, if they do get it, it'll be a match. We'll have to come up with $2,000 for the match into that. Okay?
If you're okay with that, let me look at the numbers with the motion that was made and see where. Might be something we can do next year once the budget's going, depending on if more money comes in. I think we can figure it out.
Okay. All right, other than that, that's all I have to say.
Vice Chair.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I think all of us have received phone calls and correspondence from our citizens that are very concerned about the state of the economy. All of you know that I've talked about for the last few years about the agricultural economy and how we have already been in a fragile state, and you know, what a lot of our business owners are going through at the present time is exactly what we've experienced for the last few years, and now it's across the board. You know, I respect the decisions that have been made to make us all cautious and aware of our circumstances, and I think Commissioner Booker said it very eloquently, and there's no need of me repeating that. But I think, you know, we have not seen a consistency in the orders that came down from the state to many of our businesses. And as a result, it is going to bankrupt many of them. I mean, it makes no sense to me that you can buy clothes in one department store because they've got food there, but yet you've got a whole mall that's shut down. And then you start going down the road. I am very concerned about what's being done with houses of worship across this country, but also in this state. That is very concerning to me. Mr. Chairman, I commend you and the county manager for your work on behalf of the letter. I have seen it, I've read it this morning, and I know you're going to be reading it so our citizens can also hear, and it will be publicized. But I fully support this letter, and I think it is time that we are prepared and ready in this county, I think, with the professionals that we have, to be able to go forth and make the decisions that will be in the best interest of our citizens. So, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Okay. I would concur with all of the commissioners' feelings about how the people feel in this county. And I really am proud of all of the people in the county. I mean, I haven't had too many calls that were up against us or against us. Everybody is behind us 100%, and that is a great feeling to have when the public citizens are adhering to the directives that they have been given by our federal government and by our governor and by our local government. And again, I want to congratulate the staff here. They have done unbelievable work in putting us in a safe condition, the way we have been spaced out, the work they have done to get all the information out to us. And I certainly congratulate and I'm proud of all of the workers in the Craven County because of the work that they've been doing. I just want to read this letter that's going out to our Honorable Governor Roy Cooper, and it states, "Dear Governor Cooper, Craven County has seen challenging times over the last 2 years, beginning with Hurricane Florence and now dealing with both the public health and economic pitfalls of the novel coronavirus pandemic. I want to thank you on behalf of the rest of the Craven County Board of Commissioners and all our citizens for the leadership and assistance the state of North Carolina has provided during these events. We are a resilient county, and our citizens have worked hard to find some normalcy in their lives. We very much value our partnership with the state of North Carolina and look forward to working together to overcome the challenges related to reopening Craven County after Executive 121 has expired or have been rescinded. I write to you today with the support of the Craven County Board of Commissioners and all of our concerned citizens about how best to move Craven County forward upon the expiration or rescinding of Executive Order 121. We recognize the importance of continuing to slow the spread and protecting our most vulnerable population. The Craven County Board of Commissioners are all strong advocates for public health, and we all understand the importance of reviewing metrics and data collected locally to address the protection of our citizens. In the same manner as how we view public health, we also must consider the extreme hardship placed on our local economy. As you are well aware, our local businesses, big and small, were still recovering from the devastating effects of Hurricane Florence as the coronavirus pandemic hit. Hurricane Florence was a once-in-a-generation storm that changed fundamentally how our county's economy is structured. Hurricane Florence once in a generation storm that changed fundamentally how our county economy is structured. I read that twice because it's important. Hurricane Florence was once a generation storm and changed fundamentally how our county economy was structured. It's so important. In the same manner as how we view public health, we also must consider the extreme hardship placed on local economy. As you are well aware, our local business, big and small, were still recovering from devastating effects of Hurricane Florence as the coronavirus pandemic hit. Hurricane Florence was a once-in-a-generation storm that changed fundamentally how our county economy is structured. We have worked very hard as a local government to do everything within our power to position our county citizens and business in a manner to recover more quickly and robustly. We now face a second economic catastrophe, and we must work just as hard to overcome this challenge to be positioned to help nurture and revive our local economy and the thousands of jobs vital to our county's well-being. I am sure you recognize the restrictions imposed to slow the spread of the coronavirus are having extreme detrimental effects on local economics. We must understand very clearly the need for those restrictions and very difficult balancing act in decision-making that has taken place to protect our citizens. However, we are hearing from many Craven County citizens and their desire to have a firm, descriptive pathway to normalcy. The Craven County Board of Commissioners very much agree with the desire expressed by our citizens, and we encourage you to reopen North Carolina while providing clear guidance or control to local counties to best judge further or future restrictions. As the local government that serves all of the citizens in Craven County, we know our decision-making would be based on local data, metrics, and expertise that we develop specific to our county. We have full faith in our public health department, our local county hospital, to provide the Board of Commissioners with all the information